Hi, hello. Thank you for clicking on another Truthful Minister video. And today, I'm doing a motivational Monday. I'm going to stick with these, do them for a little bit, I think. Get you some Monday motivation to start out your week. Just give you something to watch that isn't, Lord, whatever pops up on your phone or whatever pops up when you're scrolling through TikTok or Instagram or any of that, whatever that may be. Just giving you something healthy to listen to real quick. I'm going to keep it pretty short. But something I was just thinking about was Joseph in the Old Testament. You know, I love some Genesis. I just finished filming a video on Genesis a minute ago. But I love me some Genesis, so I'm going to be in Genesis 39, talking about the story of Joseph. Joseph, he's just a dude who has some dreams, and then his brothers turn on him, and he gets thrown into a pit. And then he gets sold into slavery. But what I always think is really cool is despite these negative things happening in Joseph's life, we always read in these verses. I'm going to read Genesis 39, verse 2. It says, "The Lord was with Joseph, so that he prospered, and he lived in the house of his Egyptian master." And I'm going to skip ahead toward the end of Genesis 39. It says, Joseph's been thrown in prison now, so things just aren't going well for our boy Joseph. But it says, while Joseph was there in prison, the Lord was with him. He showed him kindness and granted him favor in the eyes of the prison warden. And so Joseph gets put in charge of the prison as well. And I think about just reading this story, is all these things are happening to Joseph, and it would be so easy for Joseph to obviously be so scared, and we know that he for sure is scared. Later, in Genesis chapter 40, verse 14, he's describing these dreams, and he's telling these people that they're going to go back to Pharaoh one day. And he says, "But when all goes well with you, remember me, and show me kindness. Mention me to Pharaoh, and get me out of this prison. I was forcibly carried off from the land of the Hebrews, and even here I have done nothing to deserve being put in a dungeon." And so this is Joseph, he just interpreted the dream, and that part's not in the dream, but he's saying, hey, if you're going to go do this, please get me out of here. And so I think about, though, the question that I'm going to ask you today is, did Joseph know the Lord is with him? We read these verses now, and it's easy for us to think about it because we obviously read it on a piece of paper, and it says, yeah, this bad stuff's happening, but God was with him. But do you think Joseph was thinking about the Lord being with him? Obviously, he was a good Christian, and obviously later, we know that his faith is strong because when he goes to interpret the dreams of Pharaoh, Pharaoh says this in chapter 41, verse 15. It says, "Pharaoh said to Joseph, I had a dream, and no one can interpret it. But I have heard it said of you that when you hear a dream, you can interpret it." And Joseph boldly responds here, "I cannot do it," Joseph replied to Pharaoh, "but God will give Pharaoh the answer he desires." So we know that Joseph's bold and he's got faith in the Lord. But what I'm here to ask you today is, how often are we in these negative scenarios, whatever storm you're going through when you may be watching this video, whatever's happened to you that you feel like, there was nothing you could have done, it's just these unfortunate circumstances, or you've been blamed for something, or you lost someone, whatever that might be. How often in these scenarios do we think about the Lord being with us? Because it doesn't change the scenario being negative, but what it does change is we can see all of the awesome things God is still doing. Yes, I'm thrown in prison, but God has put me in charge. God has put these people into my life that, man, they just had a dream, and don't they work with Pharaoh? Maybe I can use this. And obviously it ends up working out in the end when Joseph becomes the most powerful person in Egypt. So whatever it is that you're going through, just be thinking about God is with you. God is with you. I know it seems tough, and it's so much easier to say than it is to live out and do. But man, I just think Joseph's story is so encouraging to think about, again, these negative circumstances that you didn't ask for, because that's just life. You're not alone out there. It's in the Bible, like Joseph and all these other people have had so many circumstances come up that seem so negative, and you're thinking God, how could you do this? But at the same time, how different would your perspective be? How much better would you feel if you just started thinking more about, okay, well, God is with me. What can God still use me to do? What has God still put in my life? What is still out there that I can use? Who can I still talk to? Who are the awesome people that God has put in my life for this moment? And obviously, Genesis ends with that verse, or this story kind of begins to end with that verse when his brothers are asking him, we're so sorry, we can't believe that we did this, will you ever forget of us? And Joseph says, well, what the enemy meant for evil, you turned it for good. God turned it for good. And so just be thinking about, again, whatever you're going through today, I pray that this just really touches you in your heart and encourages you that God can use whatever you're doing. God can still use you. It doesn't matter what has happened to you in the world or what people are saying about you. Whatever it is, whatever that storm is that you're going through, I know you're hurt. I've been there. We've all been there. But man, God can still use you. God still loves you. God still wants you. God still got a plan for you, and he is with you. And so just use this story as encouragement. God is with you. I hope this lifts you up today. Go have a great rest of your week. Go have a good Monday. God bless.